Well, joining me now in the studio is GBNews business and economics editor Liam Halligan. So, inflation. Right, and I guess what I'm interested in, what are the tools at, whether it's the government or the Bank of England's disposal, to deal with inflation?
Well, the main one is to raise interest rates. It seems like a pretty blunt instrument, but what you're trying to do is take demand out of the economy by raising borrowing costs, not least for people with mortgages and other personal loans. We have seen the Bank of England raise interest rates 6 times in a row, Esther, as you know. They're now at 1.75%. That's much lower than when we were kids or recent years, but it's much higher than they were down at just a quarter of 1% during the pandemic. And if you look at the financial markets, traders are betting that interest rates will actually double by this time next year. So they'll be at 3.5%.
Gosh.
Which is rough if you've got a variable rate mortgage or if you've got a fixed rate mortgage that's going to expire by then. But it's not just about interest rates. Another way to get inflation out of the system is to, help firms lower their costs.
Exactly.
Right. So I would say if you avoid raising corporation tax or even lower corporation tax, that means firms have got more margin. They don't have to pass on the big cost pressures to consumers. And getting rid of red tape. It's about not just the demand side, which the Bank of England's tried to influence, but also the supply side.
Yeah. And I guess that's where I'd be looking from, saying, how do we reduce the cost of things? So to me, be looking at it and think, well, when would you be raising sort of interest rates? Because that will push up costs, push up people's, the lack of money already in the pocket with inflation is going to be even worse.
I mean, you'll know from your experience as an MP, and many people watching and listening to this show, if they're running small businesses, the business rates, any physical presence a business has, that attracts tax. Their machinery, the value of their machinery attracts tax. Business rates are sky high, particularly for a lot of small and medium-sized firms. If you can review business rates, get them down, they can help firms keep their costs under some kind of control. But look, there is a lot of doom and gloom here. I wanted to say, Esther, that I do actually think inflation is going to peak quite soon. I do think it will go up more in the autumn because that energy price cap, the energy regulator Ofcom will raise the price cap again. We know that because wholesale gas and energy bills costs are very high, and that means household utilities will go up again, even though they've almost doubled in the last year. That will be in October. But once we're through that, once we're through this autumn and winter, I do think inflation will start to come down. And if you really, I won't bore you with the fine print, but if you look really deeply into the ONS data, the Office of National Statistics data, as I have, and I'll be explaining more after 1 o'clock in my show On the Money, why I think this, you can see signs that these supply chain price pressures, this supply push inflation is now starting to come off. Things like, the cost of timber, for instance. Your family were in the building game for many years, mine too. That's absolutely key cost of so many things. The costs of other basic inputs. The oil price, for instance, is down about 30% since the height of summer. So there are signs, as the global economy reboots, as the supply chain pressures start to ease, frankly, as we all get back up on our feet after 2 years of lockdown, inflation will start to come down. And you said the big word there, lockdown. Yeah. These are the sort of effects from there. It's a cost of lockdown crisis as well as a cost of living crisis. We are singing off the same hymn sheet. And the other thing that I wondered about, some people are talking for action, action, action. We need to be doing something. Where are the ministers? Where's even the current Prime Minister? We need to be doing things. But I'm wondering, what was the Bank of England doing for so many months? Were they asleep at the wheel? Yeah, I think they were. And I've written this many times in my weekly Sunday Telegraph column. I wrote in March 2021 that a big surge of inflation was coming. And, people in the Bank of England, the Treasury laughed at me. I mean, literally, it wasn't emailing me, what are you talking about? Are you completely mad? And it's not just me. Other pundits and particularly people that really understand financial markets could see this coming. I do think the Bank of England was asleep at the wheel. I'm afraid, it gives me no pleasure to say this, but Governor Andrew Bailey was talking about inflation being transitory as recently as October and November last year, which when it was clear that there was going to be a big inflationary problem. And yes, the war in Ukraine is important. And if there is a major escalation and wheat prices and energy prices go up, that will mean there is more of a problem. But we were already at a 30-year high for inflation in this country the month before the war in Ukraine began.